Hey, welcome to Crossroads. Folks, the day is here. The jury may, in fact, have a decision today on the case with Donald Trump in New York. Now, the closing arguments were in yesterday on the case. Former President Donald Trump spoke to the press before the trial. Trump is maintaining his position, saying the case is politically motivated. The Biden administration, I think, maybe misplayed their cards on that because, frankly, they're looking like it's politically motivated. They actually sent a delegation or a little force to go in front of the courtroom and even kind of campaigned for Biden in front of the courtroom. Now, on the other side, Donald Trump's team says the prosecutors did not meet the burden of proof, while prosecutors claim that they have a mountain of evidence. But it doesn't seem this is even resonating among some of the left wing, in fact. Even CNN and their legal analysts have been saying that the prosecutors did not meet the burden of proof. We'll see what they say in the end, of course. The outcome likely will not be the end of this. We could have a decision by the end of the day today. So if there's anything happening, of course, we'll go over it tomorrow. But a guilty verdict very likely will be hit with a very swift appeal. Oddly enough, I think some Trump supporters like Tim Pool, even, he's kind of on board. Tim Pool has even said that, frankly, he hopes Trump gets sent to jail because he thinks it'll help Trump win, essentially. Now, Trump's going to still have to face other charges as well, and there's some other pretty important stuff going on at the same time. The Hunter Biden trial also starts next week. And frankly, the timing of the Hunter Biden trial over his gun charges, that's going to steal a lot of the fire from whatever takes place today. So we'll see what happens. First, let me go over what's happening with the Trump trial and where we're at right now. Now, former President Trump, according to Fox News, said yesterday on Tuesday that, quote, "It's a very dangerous day for America." He said this ahead of the closing arguments yesterday in the New York case. And Trump added, "This is a very dangerous day for America. It's a very sad day." And he said, "Make no mistake about it, I'm here because of crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of our country," according to Trump, right? He said he's destroying our country. This country is being destroyed rapidly, not slowly, rapidly. On the border, on energy, on inflation, on everything you can name. Afghanistan removal, everything about what he's done. He's destroying our country. And he's also destroying it with weaponization. And this is purely weaponization. And Trump added, of course, to this. Now, that being said, Trump's team has maintained this as well. And some of his team, they've been going out even today saying that, you know, look at all the prosecutors and the DAs. They're all here. They're all paying attention to this. Meanwhile, in New York City, you have women getting pushed onto subway tracks. You have attacks on kids. You have shootings. You have gang violence. You have car break-ins. You have car thefts. And this is what they're focused on. And while Americans are watching what I think is pretty serious crime, people stealing people's homes with squatters' rights and so on, they're all focused on Trump, right, which was 2 misdemeanors elevated to 34 felonies, which is what the New York case is about. Now, the judge made it, there's some pretty important things with this, right? The judge in the case made it so that the prosecutors get the last word instead of Trump's defense team. I've actually covered court cases before. I've personally, maybe this is normal. I've never seen this happen before. Normally what happens is that, right, the person being accused gets the last word. And so what they'll often do is they'll let the prosecutors, so again, submit their evidence. Then they'll let the defense refute the evidence, not the other way around. The judge in the New York case reversed this process. And so Trump's team went first. The prosecutors went last. I can tell you as a writer, as somebody who does documentaries, as somebody who does the show you're watching right now, there's different principles with what remains in people's minds when you're writing and telling stories. And usually it's what's at the beginning. The beginning catches people's attention. The end is what's left with them. And so people are more likely to remember what you end with. And so with this case, of course, and the prosecutors being able to go last, that, of course, has the effect of having the jury more clearly have that effect than the Trump defense, which frankly looks a bit fishy to me, frankly. Now, deliberations among the jury, they were expected to start as early as today. We could have a decision by the end of the day today. It may take longer. We don't know. Sometimes they're pretty quick, so we'll see, right? If Trump is convicted, he's facing 34 felony counts. Remember, this was a bookkeeping charge, which is normally a misdemeanor that was past the statute of limitations, right, related to the Stormy Daniels case. Basically, again, what happened, Trump was accused of, basically having mismanagement in his bookkeeping, not by him, but by his lawyer, Michael Cohen. Stormy Daniels, we don't know the story behind it, but for some reason they had a hush money charge or hush money case. Sometimes that's because they just want someone to be quiet. Sometimes that's because somebody is threatening them. We don't know the real story behind it. Trump and Daniels both previously denied that anything happened between them. Maybe that was because of the agreement they had. Maybe nothing actually happened. Who knows? We don't know that far. But that being said, of course, what happened was they deemed that hush money thing, an NDA, right, a non-disclosure agreement, as a legal expense. And normally, if you hire a lawyer to negotiate with somebody and have an NDA signed, I'd say that's probably a legal expense. But he's being accused, Trump, of doing this using campaign finances and doing it with the intent of changing the election results. And so he's being accused of mislabeling that as a legal expense. And so that's the essence of the charge. And because this was two misdemeanors that were, again, past the statute of limitations, meaning it's too old to be charged with, Alvin Bragg and the others who brought the case, they reinterpreted this, suggesting that the real charge was not about the bookkeeping, but about an intent to alter the outcome of the elections, essentially. And so they took that and they elevated those two misdemeanors into 34 felonies. Now, Trump, if he is convicted, you might have heard numbers going around like 124 years in prison or something like that. Because of New York law and the caps on it, realistically, he could face a maximum of 20 years in prison, which, frankly, he's old enough now where that would be a life sentence. Trump very likely will appeal this regardless, so we'll see what happens with it. As I mentioned, it doesn't seem that even the left-wing media is sold on it. It's mixed. You do see some, but there have even been like CNN legal analysts who said that, frankly, the prosecutors did not reach the burden of proof. Judge Merchan, the one overseeing this case, he's kind of made the case a bit more loose. And so the jury doesn't even need to fully agree on the precursor crime in order to find a guilty verdict, which is a bit strange. I've never heard of that before personally, because normally you need to show criminal intent, and they made it so they didn't have to show that, essentially. Also, though, the verdict is going to affect the 2024 elections one way or the other, no matter how you look at it. Let's go to this after a quick break.
Experts agree. One of the best ways to protect against financial uncertainty is to diversify your portfolio. Learn how physical gold and silver can secure your retirement funds from today's economic challenges. With a gold IRA from American Hartford Gold, you can safeguard your wealth with no penalties or taxes when you transfer your current qualifying retirement accounts. Call now and our precious metals specialists will send you a free information kit, no cost or obligation. American Hartford Gold, a trusted industry leader with an A+ from the Better Business Bureau, has a 5-star rating from thousands of happy clients. Whether you are getting physical precious metals in a gold IRA or delivered to your doorstep, we offer only the highest quality gold and silver. For your peace of mind, we also offer a no-fee buyback commitment, a low-price guarantee, along with free shipping and free insurance. So don't wait. Call the number on your screen today and secure your financial future.
Hey, welcome back. Now, as I mentioned, the closing arguments are in for President Donald Trump's legal case in New York City. And the verdict, again, no matter what happens by the end of the day today, whether we get a guilty verdict or not, maybe by the end of the week, this is going to affect the 2024 elections. And if there is a guilty verdict, Biden's campaign team, they're saying they're going to use it. Frankly, they're already using it. They even sent a campaign team to go and campaign in front of the courtroom today, which frankly, I think is pretty bad optics personally. But you can expect even more of this going forward. Politico said this. He said, Joe Biden plans to break his vow of silence and publicly address the criminal trials Donald Trump is facing when a verdict is reached. It says 4 people familiar with the internal deliberations told Politico. They note that Biden intends to initially address the verdict in a White House setting, not a campaign one, to show his statement isn't political. I think they broke that already with what they did today, by the way. According to people, they say, who were granted anonymity to discuss internal deliberations. It notes that if the jury convicts Trump, Biden's team will then argue that the results show Trump is ill-suited for office and that it demonstrates the extremes to which the former president would go to win again. It notes the campaign's social media team, the Biden team, is considering leveraging the line of attack further, with discussions underway about referring to the ex-president online as convicted felon Donald Trump, which frankly, I think is kind of what they wanted from the beginning with this. It notes that Biden's team is also preparing for a barrage of Republican and Trump attacks if the former president's acquittal or if there's a hung jury. So if Trump is innocent, they're also having in place systems to try to defend themselves from criticism. I would point to one other issue with the fact that Biden's planning to use this politically, and in fact is already doing it, right? Already Biden, they had a campaign team outside the courtroom doing this. They had like Robert De Niro with them and things like that. That could actually throw a wrench in the jury's decision. You know, if the president of the United States is making public statements while the jury is deliberating, that in itself could cause trouble with the way the jury perceives things. You know, if the president of the, if literally they waited till after the final, deliberations were in, they waited until the jury takes a day and goes and speaks about it and figures out whether the guy is guilty or not. If during the time when a jury is deciding whether someone is innocent or guilty, the president of the United States comes out and gives statements on it or sends a campaign team to go do it, that could technically affect, the jury's decision. It's not clear whether the jury is going to be hearing that. Frankly, I'd have a hard time believing they wouldn't, especially as they walk to the courtroom. And they, of course, know that Biden has a campaign team right out front. I do wonder how that would affect things and whether that could actually impact any kind of future, maybe appeal or something like that. At the same time, this could actually impact the other cases. Remember, Donald Trump is still facing 3 other cases. And of course, if the president of the United States is coming out and commenting on the legal cases, which Biden previously said he would not do specifically for this reason, right? Because again, these are ongoing legal cases and the president technically should stay out of them if there's ongoing legal cases, because a presidential statement could alter the case. But again, if you can't get a fair trial, if you can't get a jury that is not predisposed to one opinion or the other, it makes it very hard to have a trial by jury. And so again, we'll see how this affects things, frankly. Meanwhile, though, things are heating up for Joe Biden. Now, the son of President Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, he's going to be facing charges next week. And so the Hunter Biden case is coming up now. The timing of this, especially if, we'll see when the jury makes their decision on the Trump case. If it comes out today, that's still a big deal. But if it comes out Friday, and then by like next Tuesday, you have Hunter Biden facing charges, the timing of that in the public memory is going to damage any impact they would have had from the Trump case. Hunter Biden is going to be on trial. And this is around his firearms charge. Remember, he's facing a few different ones. Let me get into it, right? As this looms, new information is also emerging about his father's alleged ties to his business deals. Now, the case is coming up next week on June 3rd. They're going to be dealing with the gun charges first, then the tax charges, and the tax charges are the ones that are going to probably loop in Joe Biden. Now, Hunter Biden's team tried having the case delayed a couple weeks ago, but the request was denied. I don't know what their intent was on trying to, again, delay it, but I would say that they were arguing it's going to have a political impact. I'd argue they're probably right, because I think they were anticipating a political impact from the prosecution of Donald Trump, meaning that, again, the political impact of Trump's standing trial would be undermined by the political impact of Hunter Biden's standing trial. They tried delaying it. The judge denied that request. AP said this on May 14th. They did this a couple times. Let me show you this first. It says Hunter Biden's federal gun case will go to trial next month. This was again a couple weeks ago. A judge said Tuesday, denying a bid by lawyers for the president's son to delay the prosecution. And it said U.S. District Judge Marilyn Noriega rejected Hunter Biden's request to push the trial in Delaware until September, which the defense said was necessary to line up witnesses and go through evidence handed over by prosecutors. It notes further in that in Delaware, Hunter Biden is accused of lying about his drug use in October 2018 on a form to buy a gun that he kept for about 11 days. It notes that he has pleaded not guilty and acknowledged struggling with an addiction to crack cocaine during that period in 2018, but his lawyers have said that he did not break the law. Newsflash, folks, if you're addicted to crack cocaine and you buy a gun and you say you're not addicted to drugs, you might be charged with lying on that form, which is what Hunter Biden's facing, of course. Now, after being rejected by the judge, again to delay the case, they tried to get the court to pause the trial as well. This was about a week after his attempt on May 14th. This was just recently as well. ABC News noted this. They say Hunter Biden pressed for a delay in his federal gun case on Monday, this was just recently, asking an appeals court to pause the Delaware trial set to begin next month, in fact, next week now. And it said defense attorneys for the president's son argued there is not an urgent need to start the trial on the June 3rd date set by the federal judge overseeing the case. And they also cite the short time between the Delaware trial and the start of another trial on tax charges in California. And again, as I mentioned, the gun charge is one thing. With the gun charge, it's going to be Hunter Biden's laptop. They're going to have to prove that Hunter Biden was on drugs. They're going to have to prove that while he was on drugs and maybe not in his right mind, he bought a gun and possibly lied on a form. And they're going to have to prove that basically, that took place. In that process, they're going to be bringing up the Hunter Biden laptop. And as part of that, people are going to be watching the photos and the videos of Hunter Biden probably that he had posted or put on there. Very disturbing photos, I might remind you. Photos of him doing naked push-ups between a couch and a desk and, flashing guns and riding around with hookers and things like that. And doing drugs and taking photos of speedometers while speeding on a freeway, while smoking drugs in his car while he drives. Things like that are going to be shown. Now, it notes that the lawyers are asking the full Third Circuit Court of Appeals to hear a bid to dismiss the prosecution. They note it was rejected by a 3-judge panel that did not rule on the merits of his claims, but said the court doesn't have jurisdiction to review the matter. And notes the lawyers are also appealing a separate decision from U.S. District Judge Marilyn Noriega, rejecting a claim that the case violates the Constitution's Second Amendment on firearm ownership. Those rulings paved the way, it says, for the Justice Department to bring President Joe Biden's son to trial in the midst of the president's re-election campaign. Now, a couple points on this. I mentioned that with the gun charge, remember there's 2 charges. There's the gun charge and there's the tax charge. I'll get into both of those. On the gun charge first, when the charge came out, I saw people on Twitter, people on social media saying that, Black Americans, rappers, that some of them know people who went to jail for a really long time on illegal gun charges. And so for any of those individuals who have themselves been attacked on that, who have friends who've been attacked on that, who maybe follow a musician they like a rapper who's gone to prison for that, if they're watching the president's son do that and get away with that, for them that's a big deal. Remember that criminal justice reform and these types of issues, they tend to be one of the bigger issues among the black voters, right? That was why BLM and all those whole things resonated so much with a lot of them, even if they didn't agree with the violence and the burning and so on. A lot of them believe that there's an unequal representation of justice, that some of them may face harsher charges just based on the color of their skin, right? I'm just saying what some of them believe, right? When they see the president's son getting away with something they believe they would go to prison for, that has an impact on them as well. And you saw this on Twitter, you saw this on social media, where they're saying, well, why is he getting away with it? Why was he offered a plea deal, which I'll get into in a minute? Why was he offered what people were saying was a sweetheart deal to get off on charges that, hey, my brother or my friend or this rapper I like went to jail for a really long time for, right? That's the kind of issue that's going to be brought up. And it's also going to be showing the type of home that was around the president. And this is going to be, again, the imagery around the gun charge. Now, you could argue that's more on the cultural front. The tax charge is going to be the bigger one in terms of actual crime. Because the tax one has to do with foreign business deals, tax fraud, and things that even maybe tie in Joe Biden himself. Let me get into this. Now, on the charges themselves, remember what happened. Hunter Biden was offered a plea deal last year. People called it the sweetheart deal. Hunter Biden's team claimed that basically it was the opposite, that he was not given a sweetheart deal, that it was given to the other side. And so they note that he was offered a plea deal for misdemeanor tax charges, right? He just had to plead guilty to misdemeanors, and that would have gotten the gun charges dropped if he didn't get in trouble for 2 years. He would have been on probation, right? Don't commit another crime for 2 years and it all goes away. That would have been a very easy deal for him to accept. A couple tax charges, misdemeanors. You don't have to go to jail. Hey, don't collect $200. It would have been a slap on the wrist, basically. Because of that, a lot of people suggest it was a sweetheart deal. The Hunter Biden team kind of had a bit of a back and forth with the judge, and it caused a lot of problems. The deal eventually broke down, and Hunter Biden, because of that, is now indicted on 3 firearms charges in Delaware, and he's facing charges for alleged tax crimes in California, and all of these are going to be pretty serious. The gun charges he's facing, again, are for allegedly making false statements. He's accused of falsely claiming he was not addicted to drugs on his gun forms and then handing that form in, right? 2 charges, lying on the form, the official government document, and then submitting that form, right? Those are the 2 separate charges. Another is for allegedly possessing a gun despite being a drug user, right? When the form charges, the submitting of the form, and then the actual getting the gun while being on drugs, allegedly, right? Now remember, he was taking photos of this as well, which makes it a bit more difficult. Now remember, when it comes to criminal prosecutions, in history, there weren't always cameras. In history, there weren't always videos. And despite the lack of video evidence and photographic evidence, people in history still went to jail for crimes. You don't technically need video or photographic evidence to charge someone or to find somebody guilty. But these days, because videos and photos are a thing, it actually can work for you or against you in a really serious way. And the fact that Hunter Biden was frankly taking photos and videos of himself, flashing a gun and smoking what looked like a crack pipe and things like that, it's going to be kind of hard for him to deny this, especially because videos and photos are time-stamped. And so you can look at the timestamps on that evidence that frankly is out there and just compare that to when he signed the forms. This is going to be a very difficult case for him, frankly. And because of that as well, the laptop, right, the laptop from hell they call it, that's going to be part of the evidence. And now remember that as well. Hunter Biden claims a laptop was stolen evidence. He's even suing like Fox News, or threatening to sue Fox News, by the way, for using some images from that. It's a bit complicated because Joe Biden had passed. This is where it gets complicated. Joe Biden actually made an executive order making it illegal to share nude pictures of other people when they have not acknowledged you being able to do that. Then, of course, that does have some real benefits, I think. If people want to dox somebody or blackmail somebody, or we've heard rumors of this happening in politics, for example, people getting blackmailed. It makes it a crime for people to take nude or obscene images of you and just put them online or whatever like that. But some people suggested that Joe Biden may have done that to help Hunter Biden, because Hunter Biden, of course, had a lot of weird nude images of himself, waving guns and smoking drugs and so on. And because of that, if media now published that evidence, or what could be evidence in this particular regard, they could face lawsuits based on Joe Biden's executive order. And so some people suggested Joe did that to protect Hunter. I don't know. You make what you will of it, right? Regardless, though, the laptop will be part of the evidence because of its relevance to this. Now, as for Hunter Biden's tax charges, this is where it's going to get really big, in my opinion, because, the gun charges, it's kind of a big deal. They're probably going to appeal it, frankly, which, as somebody who's pro-Second Amendment, I support the Second Amendment. Frankly, if Hunter Biden could become an advocate for, Second Amendment rights and takes this thing to the Supreme Court, which he's saying he will, and Hunter Biden, of all people, basically makes constitutional protections more broad on gun rights, that'd be pretty bizarre, frankly. I don't know if I support people using drugs, owning guns. I actually do believe there should be some limits on it. But that's going to be basically what Hunter Biden's going on, frankly. But the other side is going to be the bigger one. This is going to be the one that loops in Joe Biden, possibly. He's facing tax charges, and he's facing, in particular, 3 felonies and 6 misdemeanors in California for around $1.4 million in taxes that he allegedly owes between 2016 and 2019. And again, that's going to be pretty big, too. Now, maybe the more libertarian types would argue that taxation is theft from the get-go, and maybe Hunter Biden should have to pay taxes. But for Joe Biden, that's going to look bad because Joe Biden's all about making people, pay their fair share. He's all about going after people with committing tax fraud. They've expanded the IRS to go after people like this. And when his own son is at least being accused of having done what he claims is one of the bigger issues in our country, it frankly is pretty bad optics, especially leading into the elections. The other side of it, though, is that the money involved with this also could tie into some of his business deals. And that opens the books on Hunter Biden's business deals and also allows investigators access to those books. And remember, those books also possibly tie in Joe Biden, which is going to get really complicated because these are going to be the cases we're going to be watching leading into the November elections. Now, look, meanwhile, remember, Trump isn't just facing charges in New York, right? It's not just the New York case they're deciding on possibly today. He's also facing charges in Florida. He's facing charges, elsewhere, right, in Georgia and so on. But in Florida, again, he's facing charges on the classified documents case. That is still going on. I want to be talking about that, though, what's happening with it, only on epictv.com, because there's big updates. So for those of you on YouTube, Facebook, X, and Rumble, come and join us on epictv.com. Not only will you get access to the rest of my show and others as well, but also to our great shows like Facts Matter, American Thought Leaders, and some great movies as well. Our premium reports, hard-hitting documentaries, including my last one on the border crisis. It's called Weapons of Mass Migration. In it, I go into how the U.S. and the United Nations are working hand in hand to facilitate the migrant crisis, something that you may have seen kind of circumstantial evidence on, right? Hey, why are NGOs involved with this? Who's running the buses that are shipping illegal immigrants all around the United States? Why are these individuals starting migrant caravans, and who's supporting them as they travel to the U.S.? This documentary goes into those topics and answers those questions. The short of it is, well, our government signed an agreement with the United Nations to facilitate this. And for some reason, we've not been clearly told this is happening. This documentary shows clearly what, in fact, was agreed upon and what is, in fact, happening. I think it's extremely important for our national discussion. You can find that documentary, Weapons of Mass Migration, exclusively on epictv.com. So click the link below in the description, and it'll be on your way. And let me show you a trailer of that before we jump exclusively to Epic TV.
An unrelenting stream of immigration. Non-stop.
According to statistics, around 7.2 million illegal immigrants entered the United States under President Joe Biden alone. They have United Nations facilities here, and the people pushing this are leading people to their deaths.
To what extent is the United Nations facilitating the border crisis?
They're throwing rocks!
They're being overridden by international powers.
We are not authorized to talk.
It is a humanitarian business now.
And they said, oh yeah, these are the debit cards. We're giving these debit cards to the immigrants.
Why all the cloak and dagger? Why are we being so stealthy about this?
Some of these people have gone on record and publicly talked about this. People close to Barack Obama.
It puts 12 million people on the path to citizenship and eventually voters.
I've been researching, of course, what's happening, but I want to know why it's happening.
We'll see chaos on a global scale until America is extinguished and the power shifts completely to the east.